Trump, it appears, might be changing his mind about his choice of Peter Hegseth for the director of defense. Now, I'm not making this up, but this is what is happening at this point in time. And if you're new to the story, you don't understand why. I want to get into this clip here from CNN. There were a couple of issues with Pete. One of them is the fact that he doesn't have the experience. He's a host on Fox News, just not experienced in defense per se. But the other problem is he does have sexual assault allegations. And I want to get into that part first. Then we're going to dive into what could be happening here with Ron DeSantis. And I'm going to tell you why Ron DeSantis would be even scarier in a defense position. Let's go ahead and get started with this clip here.
Elena, you cover the Trump transition for us. So I'm just going to start here when it comes to Pete Hegseth. Once again, in light of this police report, we are hearing from the Trump team saying that he fully supports his nominee. There's no plan to even close to withdraw him. This report corroborates what Mr. Hegseth's attorneys have said all along. The incident was fully investigated and no charges were filed. Now, she says because police found the allegations to be false. I just want to underscore, we don't know that police found the allegations to be false.
This is where I hate, and I tell you guys, I hate to agree with Dana Bashir, but she's actually right on this one. We don't know that. So that statement that she's making there, it's interesting, though, that they want to bring up the sexual assault allegations about Pete Hegseth, but they pretended all this time as though Tara Reade still didn't have sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. So again, it shows you how the media plays to their party.
What we know is that he wasn't prosecuted. What happened in between the allegations and none of them being prosecuted, we don't know. He said just now when he talked to reporters, as Manu said, that he was cleared. Again, we don't know that. What we do know is that there was an agreement, which his attorney says was because it was the middle of the Me Too eruption, and he knew that any public allegation would cost him his job. So he just wanted to keep it quiet. And it doesn't necessarily mean that he was guilty. We'll see. These are, again, the beginning of these questions. What are you hearing?
Right. Well, the one thing we're hearing from everyone I've been talking to this morning about this, at least so far, I think what will change is how these meetings go today. I think that's the big question, is how do Republican senators respond to some of these conversations with Hegseth and also J.D. Vance, which I find fascinating. The only two meetings he's sitting in on are those with Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth, noting that he he's not sitting on the ones with Stefanik and Doug Collins that are also taking place. But all to say, one Trump source that I had this morning I was talking with said the same thing we heard from the Trump team on the record, which was the police report doesn't change anything because it doesn't change the fundamental point that charges were never brought. That is what they're going to keep saying. I think when I talk to them about the broader question about what is going to happen with this, is there a contingency plan? Are there actually concerns about this? A few things is we know there was a lot of frustration and uneasiness from the get-go with Donald Trump selecting Pete Hegseth. And that's partly because it happened so quickly. He called him down to Mar-a-Lago to interview him very soon after Donald Trump announced that he was going to be his pick to lead the Pentagon. However, they didn't have a lot of time to vet him, to go through all this. We know, and we've reported, that they were caught off guard by some of these. They've obviously seen the police report now, but
so it sounds like they didn't do a deep dive into Pete Hegseth. I don't know what's going on with people lately not having time to get things done, but it seems like they really didn't dive too deep in his background, which I think was a terrible mistake there. They probably just assumed, well, this guy is like, he's a commentator on Fox News, so he's probably all good to go. He's also a Zionist. Like, this is the guy that just kill all, he wants all the Muslims just to be killed. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm just kidding or not kidding. Like, some of the things that he said about the Palestinians is very, very troubling. So he's a Zionist. So, the Israel lobby, it's a okay thumbs up for them. This could have been a Marianne Adelson pick. If we really want to get deep, it could have been her who wanted Pete Hegseth. We may never know. But the fact that they didn't look into this guy's background is very, very, very concerning. And when you look at some of these picks, it's like, honestly, out of all of them, like the Matt Gaetz pick actually would have been the best for civil liberties, because Matt Gaetz, one thing I will say, he's a Republican, but when it comes to civil liberties, he's actually voted in such a way that is good for civil liberties. That don't mean I agree with him on everything, because I don't. But when it comes to like free speech and censorship and all that kind of stuff, like he tends to vote favorably for those of you that care about civil liberties. So, but we saw where that went, right? Like they heavily did not want Matt Gaetz, and Matt Gaetz ended up dropping out on his own. It's just like, forget it. I'm not going to go forward with all of this. But he probably was the one, I think, that probably could cause the most ruckus or bring the ruckus and say, no, we're not going to do whatever, you know, the establishment wants us to do. But, you know, he's gone. Hegseth is problematic.
That has been an issue already from the start with him. The other thing I think, and goes the same for Matt Gaetz as well, is there's still a fear of what else could come out. Because again, they haven't done enough of that background research on some of these people. And so that's where the fear lies. However, one thing to keep in mind with both Hegseth and also Matt Gaetz is Donald Trump hand-selected them himself. These weren't people who were pushed on him by others. Donald Trump was really the one who wanted them in these roles. And part of this is going to be an ego thing. That is why Donald Trump is standing by them 100% and really lobbying people personally to stick by them and support them through these processes.
And
I'm willing to bet Marian Adelson probably had a hand in some of these picks. Because that's how it is with the donors, you know, like I scratch my back, you scratch, you know, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. They want to get something out of that deal. So we don't really know for sure that there was no other influence there. She's saying that, but come on, we don't really know. Come on.
he is somebody who was found liable himself in a court of law. He is somebody who has repeatedly denied the allegations about him with regard to allegations of sexual abuse. And therefore, with these particular allegations against these two men, he has kindred spirits. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be honest, that's a part of this.
And I mean, for Donald Trump, loyalty is a two-way street. If he feels like he's got loyalty from this Fox News anchor and the commonality that you were just talking about, then he's clearly sticking with him now. And yet, I bring up the question of loyalty because Donald Trump also throws his own people under the bus. Mm-hmm. So if this doesn't go well, if it turns out that it's going to use too much political capital, it's certainly a risk that he would jettison this pick.
I want to.
Okay, so let's go to this part here, which is what I want to bring up. He has a point about, he said Donald Trump will throw his own people under the bus there. It does say that Pete Hegseth is willing to continue to fight for this position. Like, this is wild. It's like a defiant Hegseth says he will continue to fight for defense secretary post. So it goes on to say here, Pete Hegseth, who is President-elect Donald Trump's pick for defense secretary, insisted during a Defiant media interview Wednesday that allegations against him of sexual misconduct, mismanagement, and excessive drinking are lies and that he would continue to fight for confirmation. Hegseth, who was interviewed by Megyn Kelly, has been seeking in recent days to shore up support among Senate Republicans. Okay, so what was interesting to me here is some of the things that they brought up. Excessive drinking and lies. There were excessive lies from a number of politicians. So let's not pretend like he's the only one that has lied excessively. Joe Biden's been lying for like 4 years. You know what I mean? Like Donald Trump was lying before. In 2020, he was lying as well. My big concern would be the sexual assault allegations. You think that's what they would mainly focus on instead of lying and drinking, right? So especially considering the fact that they said he has not officially been cleared. Now, I bring this up because it appears that now things are changing, hence the chalkboard behind me over here. you will see now that Donald Trump may be changing his mind. And that is because of a lot of the backlash that he's receiving about this particular pick. And I'm going to show you who he's eyeing. This is crazy. It says that Trump mulls replacing Pete Hegseth with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Oh boy. And some of you may be wondering, why didn't he give Ron DeSantis a position to begin with? I'm assuming that's because Ron DeSantis probably wanted to focus on being governor of Florida and maybe was not wanting that. I don't know. But this isn't going to be much better, folks. I'm going to tell you about Ron DeSantis, especially when it comes to defense. It says that Donald Trump is considering Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as a possible replacement for Pete Hegseth, his pick to run the Pentagon, according to people familiar with the discussions, amid Republican senators' concerns over mounting allegations about the former Fox News host's personal life. Picking DeSantis, a 2024 GOP primary rival for the presidency, would amount to a stunning turn for Trump. But he would also find in the governor a well-known conservative with a service record. We're going to get into that record, who shares Trump's and Hegseth's view on culling what they see as woke policies in the military. So, my concern is less about woke policies in the military and more about who was Ron DeSantis when he was a JAG officer. Ron DeSantis doesn't speak much about his military past. I think I heard him mention it like maybe once or twice, but he doesn't really dive into what he did when he was a JAG officer. And there's good reason for that. I want to show you what you may be preparing yourself for here with him. It says that DeSantis, who served as a Navy lawyer in Iraq and Guantanamo Bay detention facility, was on an earlier list of potential defense secretary candidates that transition officials presented to the president. Trump ultimately went with Hegseth. So here's another one. As you can see, he was not Donald Trump's first choice. Notice what it says here as well. It says DeSantis's name was presented on a list, right? So it says he was on a list of potential defense secretary candidates that transition officials presented to the president. So who is actually picking the people for Trump's cabinet? And that's any cabinet. I would say the same thing for Biden too. Who actually chose those people? If they gave you a list, someone gave you a list of names, the transition people gave you a list of names. Did you really pick who you wanted, or did you pick who you wanted from the list that they gave you? Goes on to say here, but as Hegseth nomination has faltered, the list has been revived and DeSantis is again among the choices that Trump is considering. Okay. Why is DeSantis going to be a problem? Yes, things are changing, but I think you need to know about Ron DeSantis's past as a JAG officer, in particular when he was at Guantanamo Bay. There's a reason why he doesn't talk about this much. And I want to give a big shout out to Empire Files. I saw this video when it was first released. You need to listen to this. Ron DeSantis, military secrets, torture, and war crimes. This is the gentleman here who is speaking. Listen to this.
So we went again on hunger strike. We were on force feeding. You know, it was torture. We were bleeding all the time. And I saw a fucking handsome person who was coming. He said, I'm here to ensure that you're treating humanely. And we said, okay, this is our demand. You know, we were not asking for much, you know. At the beginning, he was just...
It was Ron DeSantis.
Yes, exactly. The person.
He said, I'm here to ensure you're being treated humanely.
Yes, exactly. And if you have any problems, if you have any concerns, just talk to me. And, you know, we were drowning at that place. I'm like, oh, this is cool. That person actually writing something, he will raise the concerns, but it was piece of the game. What they were doing, they were looking what's hurt you more to use it against you. by the end of 2005, 2006, when he was there, one of the worst time at Guantanamo, literally. You know, the group who was in the administration, the interrogators, the guards, you know, the administration, all of them were the worst. And they cracked on us so hard when they came to break our hunger strike, when we went again on force feeding. A team came to us, a general, the head of the team, he was a general, and he said, we were on hunger strike, and he said, the first day, he said, I am here, I have a job. I was sent here to break your fucking hunger strike. I do not care why you're here. I don't care if you who you are. My job, sir, here to make you eat. Today we are talking, tomorrow there will be no talking. The second day, I swear by my God, Mike, they brought, you know, piles of Ensure, and they start force feeding us over and over again.
For those who don't know, Ensure is a thick, milky nutritional shake mainly marketed on daytime television to elderly people. I've had them and they are very hard to drink.
Yes. I don't know if anybody ever had to drink an Ensure, but they're not like this easy, yummy thing to drink. But he is saying that Ron DeSantis, when he came into Guantanamo Bay, he was starting to force feed the people who were on a hunger strike with Ensure.
Yes, and Ron DeSantis was there and watching us. We were crying, screaming. We were tied to the feeding chair, and that guy, he was watching that, he was laughing basically when they used to feed us, because our stomach cannot hold this amount of Ensure.
So did you hear what he said? Ron DeSantis was laughing while they were screaming. So this is who Trump could be replacing Pete Hegseth with for the defense secretary. And I don't think Ron DeSantis should be involved in any position that deals with defense. He was involved in torture at Guantanamo Bay. Let's continue.
He used to pour Ensure one can after another, one can after another. So when he approached me, I said, this is the way we are treated. You should start to eat. I threw up in his face, literally on his face.
Ron DeSantis.
And his face, yeah.
Mansour vomiting on DeSantis's face in a desperate cry for help was well-deserved. The JAG lawyer would have been well aware at the time that this was indeed a violation of international law.
A violation of international law. So this is why. So why do you need to hear this? Because when it comes to Israel in particular, Ron DeSantis has no problem with what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. If you can stand there and laugh at someone being tortured, what does that say about you as a person? You think that's a person that's going to have any sympathy for what the Palestinian people are going through? Absolutely not. Ron DeSantis is also another rabid Zionist. So he's another one. So could you imagine Ron DeSantis being the defense secretary? This is why when Ron DeSantis was running for president, I told people Ron DeSantis would be even worse than Donald Trump. So we don't know if that's going to happen for certain. We will have to stay tuned to find out. But that is some scary stuff, ladies and gentlemen. That's Ron DeSantis for you. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.